I didn't know you came in. Hello. Today we're going to change up formats and read Cleo and the Creeperific Mummy Makeover. There's several books that are in this series. There's about 4, but we're going to start with the main one just because I had it on hand. So, Monstrata. Monstrata? I don't know how to read. I'm from the South. No, they don't need to hear that. Written record of Cleo Del Nile. I miss my mom. She didn't say mom. I miss my mom. It's hard for me to say that out loud when you're a member of a very important royal family like I am. It is necessary not to show your vulnerable side. After all, the people only want a royal family that is poised and perfect. That is what Father always says. A princess should never reveal weakness. It makes you an easy target. But since the written record is private and no one would dare disobey my orders to mind their own business, I feel comfortable expressing myself. Even though Mother has been missing for such a long time, she is not forgotten. There's a lot I remember about her, so she's always with me in my memory. So beautiful. Years ago, when we were still living in ancient Egypt, Mother and I used to love curling up together on a chair. Chess lounge? To watch that's so cute. To watch movies, while Father and Nephra would play games. Mother and I were big fans of romantic comedies. Today, that is still my favorite kind of movie. My love of fashion also comes from my mother. She would get ready for a night out. Mother would always allow me to try on her gowns. Remember one time I tried on my mom's makeup? I don't know how old I was. I was like, oh my God, I look like a fucking clown. Now I embrace that clownitude logic. So, okay, I do have a son, right? And I'm not a boy mom. I am a woman that has a boy, right? And I'm going to say this because I watched something earlier today and it's been on my mind. But I feel like the only reasonable reason why it's better to have a son than a daughter is because your son is less likely to play in your makeup and your clothes. I don't really like sharing, and I think I would be very upset if I came into my room and saw that like my lip liner was stolen. Now, I'm not saying it's impossible. I'm just saying it's less likely, if you catch my drift. When she would get ready for a night out, Mother would always allow me to try on her gowns. There was one gown that was so beautiful. I can still picture it. It was made of the finest 24-karat gold thread. High key, that just pissed me off. She promised that when I was grown enough to fit into it, I could have it if I still wanted it. Of course, I've owned hundreds of gorgeous gowns since then, but I never forgot that one or how amazing my mom looked wearing it. The gown was carefully packed away and preserved, and we still have it. Like me, is waiting for her to come home. But one of my most cherished memories of my mother is from a time when I was a very small girl. My parents had been invited to a gold and white ball, and I was upset I wasn't allowed to come along. Even though she had much to do to get ready, Mother pulled me into her closet, dressed me in her most glamorous gold wrappings, and danced around her closet with me. Then, just for fun, she taught me how to put on makeup. Mother could do a smoky eye look better than anyone. and gave me a special pot of my very own lip stain to keep. She told me it was my color. All these years later, that is still my favorite shade in the whole lipstick collection. Hold on. And all these years, is it not following me? Where the fuck are you looking? Camera, you're pissing me off. That should be fine. Let me find out. Just looking at something else. I'm gonna beat his ass. Okay. She told me it was my color. All these years later, that is still my favorite shade in my whole entire lipstick collection. Mother always knew best. I often wonder where my mother has been all these years. Though I would never admit it out loud, it is sometimes hard to go through my life not knowing where my mother is or how things might be different if she was around. So many things have changed since I last spoke with her. I go to Monster High and I'm the captain of the cheerleading squad. My cool friends are very different now from who they were in Egypt. I'm sure she would be shocked to hear I hang out with vampires and werewolves. And then there's Deuce. Would Mother approve of me having a non-royal boyfriend? Father certainly doesn't approve of him, but I like to think my mom would. The only thing that hasn't changed during our years apart is my lipstick color. Wearing the special shade she selected for me makes me feel as if my mom is still really looking out for me from afar. Even though life is a whole lot different, and I've grown up a lot in the years since we lived in Egypt, I'm sure if we were to see each other again now, Mother and I would still be very much alike. Some things never change, right? But sometimes I worry I will never know, because after all these years of my mom being gone, I'm beginning to give up hope that she'll ever return. Cleo. So now we're on chapter 1. Please pass me the grapes, Cleo said. She arched her eyebrows and glanced across the enormous marble dinner table at her older sister Nephra. Cleo cleared her throat to get her sister's attention. When Nephra didn't look up from her own meal, Cleo cleared her throat again. The grapes. Nephra finally peered from under her long, dark lashes and gave her sister a withering look. Do you need some water, Cleo? She asked in a faux sweet voice. Nothing about Nephra was ever actually sweet. Your throat sounds parched. Are your wrappings too tight? My throat is fine, replied Cleo, and my wrappings are perfect. Cleo, the daughter of the mummy and the heir to the 5,000-year-old Egyptian dynasty, prided herself on her ability to remain graceful under pressure, but her sister really got under her bandages sometimes. Girl, I totally understand that. She could be such a pain. Nephra had been home on a school holiday for a few weeks, and Cleo was counting the days until she would leave again. Their home was always so much more peaceful when her sister was gone. It was also strangely quiet and often sort of lonely, but peaceful nonetheless. But I am still waiting for my grapes. Nephra delicately waved her hands in the direction of the bowl of plump green grapes. It was sitting right beside her plate at the table, but rather than passing the bowl herself, she clapped once to summon one of her family servants. She ordered, Seti, would you bring Cleo the grapes? The servants hustled forward and whisked the bowl of grapes off the table. He carried it around the enormous stone table and set it down in front of Cleo's place setting. Thank you, Seti, said Cleo, smiling. That will be all. The servant bowed his head low and then backed away from her chair. "How was your days, my daughter?" Ramsay the Nile asked in his formal voice as he dabbed the corner of his mouth with a napkin. The moment Cleo's father placed his napkin on the table, a servant rushed forward and folded it into an elaborate pyramid. Such were the perks of living the life of Egyptian royalty. No need to lift a finger or use a crumpled cloth napkin. There was always somebody nearby to make sure the Nile family led a very luxurious life. Sorry. "My day was golden," Cleo said. "We've been working on this new dance, and most of the other ghouls on the squad seem to be figuring out the routine pretty quickly." "I seriously doubt that," Nephra said, rolling her eyes. "Excuse me?" Cleo snapped, her blue eyes flashing. Her flickering long, straight black and golden hair over her shoulder and glared at her sister. "Girls," their father continued. "I said I seriously doubt that." Nephra smiled, ignoring her father's warning. "The Monster High fear leading squad totally come unwrapped after I left." "Your ghoul friends, Frankenstein, is always falling apart under pressure. And Draculaura seems to be so distracted by Claude Wolf that she never gets any of her steps right." I mean, she did call like her seed. Yeah. Cleo narrowed her eyes. Nephra had been the captain of the fear leading squad before Cleo took over. And the debate over who made a better team leader was a source of a constant competition between the two girls. Nephra believed Cleo would never live up to her legacy, but Cleo knew the squad was better than ever with her as captain. In part because the current squad was made up mostly of ghouls who supported one another no matter what. Cleo would fight to the death to defend her ghoul friends, and she knew the same could be said of the other ghouls on the squad. "How dare you say that about my ghoul friends?" Nephra shrugged. "It's the truth." "Girls!" Ramsay the Nile warned. The girl's father ruled over the household with an iron fist. He ran his life and family much as he ruled his dynasty. His way or no way at all. And much of the time, it seemed to Cleo he took Nephra's side. When they were young girls, Nephra had always been much more like her father, while Cleo had always been closer to her mother. When the girl's mother disappeared during the Nile escape from Egypt, things shifted a bit to make the family unit work without her. But still, Cleo had always felt like a little odd mummy out. And see, I'm not going to lie, like I say, if you would have switched up instead of the mom disappearing, it would have been my dad. I was closer with my dad than I was with my mom, and my sister were close. And like whenever he wasn't around, I just felt like the odd person out. So I will say that. And I feel like Ramsay and my mom will get along very well. So when I say I'm a whole lot like Cleo, I meant that shit. And I had an older sister that was a year older than me. And I did live in her shadow. So, I mean, we wasn't both on like the cheerleading squad, but I definitely lived in her shadow. I mean, it doesn't affect me now, but it did growing up. People, when people would see me in high school, like, "Oh, aren't you so-and-so's sister?" And we're like, "Damn, yeah. Oh, blah, blah, blah." Because I wasn't in anything. I wasn't dedicated enough to be in drama club. I didn't remember my lines enough to be in drama club. I wasn't that good to do art. I had book club, and that was pretty much it. But then that got ruined. We're not going to get into it. "What you just said is not the truth," Cleo said calmly but firmly. She didn't like to raise her voice to get her point across. A royal should never have to raise her voice to be heard. In a level don't mess with me tone, she added. Frankie and Draculaura are both fantastic dancers. They work very hard. And Claude and Draculaura make an adorable couple. You shouldn't judge people, Nephra. And you definitely shouldn't say mean things about my friends. I don't stand for it. That's enough. The ghoul's father slammed his fist on the table, making all the gold encrusted plates and antique bowls rattle. Nephra and Cleo glared at each other across the table. The argument was finally cut short when the door to the family's formal dining room flung open and the butler entered the room. Pardon the interruption, their butler said, bowing stiffly. What is it? Ramsay Denal barked. He waved his hand, and a trio of servants rushed forward to clear the family's dirty dinner plates. As soon as the empty plates were gone, dessert dishes magically appeared before the three Denials. A letter has arrived for you, sir, explained the butler. He held out a platter, on top of which sat an old-fashioned looking letter. The paper was yellowed and dirty, and there was a wax stamp holding the parchment closed. Ramsay took the piece of mail off the platter gingerly. The letter I got scared I wasn't recording. The letter looked fragile, as though it might crumble at the slightest touch. Cleo took a small bite of her dessert while her father read through the letter. She watched his face go from confusion to concern to shock. What is it? She asked. Yeah, she did that too. What is it? She asked, putting down her spoon. A servant rushed forward to clean away the dirty spoon and place it with a clean one for her next bite. Her father took a deep breath and looked up, gazing at each of his daughters with a vacant expression. Father? She said quietly. Are you okay? Her father, who was usually very composed, looked as if he was coming unwrapped. It was very unlike him to show his emotions in such an obvious way. Ramsay Denal took another deep breath before he spoke. I have something very important to share with you, he said finally, voice cracking. Cleo and Nephra, who had been bickering only moments before, now shared a concerned look. What's going on? Nephra mouthed. Cleo shrugged back. Finally, their father stood up, and he crossed his arm and announced, Girls, this letter's from your mother. She's coming home to us. Written record of Cleo denial. So this one is in cursive, which means that she's writing in her diary. And then anytime it's just like what's going on, it's going to be like your regular print. For many years, I have wondered what happened to my mother when we were forced to flee out of our home after it was attacked. On that awful day, there was a great deal of confusion as we left our family home in Dynasty. Father, Nephra, and I were hurried away from our palace to safety, while Mother, who had been in another wing of our own home, was presumably led somewhere else. In the months after our escape, I waited patiently for news about what had happened to my mother. We knew there was a good chance she had been taken into hiding, just as the three of us had been. I had hoped she would join us for the journey to the Boo world. But even after we arrived here, there continued to be no word. As more and more time passed, I began to really worry. I don't know how to explain it, but I've always known deep down my mother was okay. I've missed her terribly, and it worried me to not know what became of her. But I had always felt in my heart that she was okay. So I held out hope for all these years that she will return to us in time. And that time has finally come. Oh my Ra. After a lot of begging from Nephra and me, Father finally shared the details of her letter. There's still so much we don't know. But here's what we did find out. When Father and Nefer and I escaped, Mother was led to safety and instructed to hide out until the dangers pass. She was promised that she would be reunited with all of us in just a short while. But a short while turned into a very long while, though we still don't know what prevented her from returning to us sooner. I will find out soon enough. I can't wait to see my glamorous, elegant mother again. I just know she's going to be exactly as I remembered her. Finally, our family will be complete again. Chapter 2. Ghouls, I have big news, Cleo announced regally as she arrived in the Monster High's Creeperific for lunch the next day. She waited until all her ghoul friends' eyes were on her. Then she declared, "We have received a letter from my mom, and she's returning home to us." "Are you so serious?" Draculaura squealed happily. Her huge eyes, the tiny vampire flashed her little fangs as she smiled, and then she jumped up to squeeze Cleo into a friendly hug. Cleo's smile widened. "Very serious," she said, taking her usual seat at the head of the lunch table. "She'll be home soon." Frankie clapped and said, "Oh, Cleo, this is voltacious news. I can't wait to see her." Can't do all their voices, okay? I'm doing my best. God. Suddenly, Frankie popped off her arm, and it scuttled across the lunch table and grabbed one of Draculaura's French fries. Frankie, who had been built by spare parts in her father's lab, blushed a deeper green. She grabbed her hand. Remember, this is Gen 1. I had to make sure it was recording. She grabbed her hand and reattached it. It then popped a fry into her mouth. "Whoopsie. Thanks for the fry, Draculaura. Don't mention it." I know what that was. "Don't mention it," Draculaura replied. "Hands to the beat. You got everything." Okay. "Don't mention it," Draculaura replied with a grin. Cleo sighed contentedly as she looked at her ghoul friends, sharing her creeperific news with them. It made it feel even more special. But then she realized a couple of her ghoul friends weren't there. Where are the other ghouls? I know they'll want to hear my big news right away. Laguna has swim team meeting during lunch, Dracula explained. And Claudine had to make up a test she missed last week because of her morning track practice and ran long, added Frankie. Cleo was disappointed that all her best school friends weren't there for her big announcement. She sighed and said, "Oh, well, I'll tell them later. I just know they'll be so thrilled. Ghouls, you have no idea how glamorous my mother is. Her fashion sense is to die for. Her hair is absolute perfection. And the parties she throws are talked about for centuries." She sighed dreamily, then paused dramatically to say, "In fact, my father, sister, and I are planning a huge surprise party to welcome her home. We're all going to throw a monstrously huge Fingalicious ball." I'm sorry. Fingalicious ball. Is Fingalicious good? Fingalus? A monstrously huge fingerless ball. I'm sure Mother has gotten even more clawsome over the years. I certainly have. I just know it runs in the family. So I bet her expectations for her welcome will be very high, and I hope she'll be pleased. "Will we be invited to the ball?" Draculaura asked, clearly excited about the chance to get to dress up. Okay, I'm sorry. "Will I?" Hold on. Give me a sexy guy voice for this one. Yeah, whatever you say, Cleo. Okay. Will I? Asked Deuce, sliding up behind Cleo. Deuce and Cleo were the golden couple of Monster High, and they were a very cute pair. Even though Deuce was totally low key and relaxed, and Cleo was, well, not. He and Cleo balance each other out, and together they rule the halls of Monster High. See, he is not nonchalant. He just looks it. That's what I'm asking for. Just like, I don't understand. Let's be honest, any guy that would date me is probably... See, Deuce is very nonchalant looking, but he's not nonchalant when it comes to his girl. Guys be acting so fucking stupid. Like, there should be a... I failed to put down any kind of dating advice on this particular video because anybody that would date me probably would not be watching this. I'm pretty sure he's fiddling with figures like those posable like Spider-Man stuff or whatever, but he's definitely not a Monster High fan. I mean, I feel like he could be, but I feel like there's a likelihood that he's not. And that's okay. He doesn't have to like what I like. But he will respect me. Okay, that was kind of lame. Cleo grinned at Deuce. Of course, you're all invited. My mother wants to be introduced to all my friends, and I'm sure you've all just dying to meet her. Of course, you all know the denials parties are absolutely legendary, so you wouldn't want to miss it. I'm sure now that my mother has returned, parties at our palace will be even more incredible. She has the golden touch that will take everything to the next level. Sounds like this isn't going to be my kind of party, Deuce mumbled. Can I wear shorts? Cleo rolled her eyes. Only the finest for my mom, Deuce. We'll get you a new suit, obviously. So that's a no to the shorts? Deuce grumbled. Cleo ignored him. In fact, Cleo ignored the shit out of him. I'm joking. Cleo ignored him. In fact, you'll all need new gowns. She turned her attention back to the ghoul friends. This is the occasion that will require the finest fabrics, the most fantastic designs, extraordinary food. Plans for her mother's welcome home ball swirled around in Cleo's head. Thinking out loud, she whispered, "Ooh, maybe Claudine will help me design something one of a kind to wear. I want to make sure my mother's impressed." What if your mother has changed? Dracula asked suddenly. I mean, what if she lost her fashion sense or something? How could something like that possibly happen? Cleo asked loudly, her voice raising several octaves. She paused and cleared her throat. She spoke again, her voice very soft. I didn't mean to snap at you. It's just absurd to think my mother losing her fashion sense. Sorry, Cleo. You're right, Dracula said. She and Frankie exchanged worried looks. Both ghouls hoped that Cleo's mom would be everything she remembered. But what if she wasn't? Cleo and her friends spent the rest of the lunch discussing outfits they could wear to the surprise party of the century. Then they talked about the food Cleo would have catered in and the decorations that would best welcome her mother to the Boo world. Deuce kept chiming in with party ideas of his own, and Cleo kept shooting them down because they weren't elegant enough. He's a chill guy. He's just chill. Maybe you won't be invited after all, she said after Deuce suggests changing the elegant Egyptian ball into a pool party complete with water slides and lazy rivers. This is a very serious event, Deuce. Deuce chuckled. Do you really think your mom's going to care what kind of party you're having for this thing? Don't you think she'd be most interested just seeing you and your fam again? Chilling, getting caught up, hanging out, you know? This thing? Cleo huffed, entirely missing the point of his question. It's a ball, not a thing. And chilling? Deuce! You know my family doesn't chill. Ugh, this lunch is over. She stood up and spun around, preparing to storm out of the cafeteria and away from Deuce to make a point. Before she can even get halfway across the room, she heard Frankie shriek. Sensing something was wrong, Cleo spun around. Dracula had already dashed away to meet up with Claude before afternoon classes started. Cleo rushed back to the table, her face etched with concern. Frankie, she asked, tilting her head one side. Did you fall? Frankie muttered. Not exactly. Let me help you get off the floor, Cleo said, reaching out to lend a hand to her friend. She was glad Frankie hadn't fallen, but horrified by the thought that Frankie's adorable outfit was rubbed up against the screechanza stain on the cafeteria floor. The creepeteria floor! It's a creepeteria! Frankie smiled meekly. She began. You what? Cleo said, urging her ghoul friend to speak up. In her many years of life, Cleo had learned that you most often got what you needed when you asked for it or demanded it. Frankie bit her lip and said, I, kind of ripped my skirt. Let me see, Cleo ordered. Frankie held up one corner of her skirt, an adorable pleated black and white plaid, and grinned sheepishly. It's bad. Cleo put her hand on her hips as she surveyed the situation. It is bad. Frankie's skirt had torn all the way up on one side of her leg. I'll figure it out, Frankie said in a rush, tears filling her eyes. No big deal. Once everyone leaves the creepeteria, I'll just sneak over to Headmistress Bloodgood's office. Maybe they'll have a spare skirt or pants I can borrow until the end of the school day. Oh my raw no, Cleo said, horrified. You are not borrowing pants from the school office. Seriously, Frankie. Why not? Cleo began to laugh. Total fashion disaster. She held out her hand again, urging Frankie to take it. Come on, she said. I'll sneak you out of here now, and we can try to do something to patch you up until the end of the day. I'm a pro at rapping. So we should be able to figure something out to make this work for at least a few hours. Seriously, Cleo? Frankie said as a warning bell rang. You'll be late to class. And with everything you need to do to prepare for your mom's homecoming and getting ready for the ball, you can't risk getting in trouble with headmistress for being late to class. Don't worry about it, Cleo said, waving her off. I'll never do anything I don't want to do. Now, come with me. Let's handle this fashion desire in a true denial style. Written record of Cleo denial, yeah. Preparations for my mother's surprise welcome home ball are all well underway. Father and Nephra and I have been working overtime telling our servants what to do to ensure that everything is absolutely perfect. I can't believe she'll already be here tomorrow. I wish we could have a ball on her first night home, but what a way to be welcomed to the Boo world. But Father suggests we wait until the weekend so more people can attend. He also said we should give her some time to adjust to her new surroundings. That makes sense. But I hate waiting. Which is kind of similar to what Deuce said. You know, and I understand that she kind of got wrapped up in the news of like her mom and giving. Hi, it's Editing Olivia. So the uncut version of the video is like 50 minutes, I believe. I want to say this is off memory. And by the time that I noticed that my camera had stopped working, I was hungry. So I went ahead and cooked dinner for me and my kiddo, and I had left my camera on the charger. I didn't have it in me after that, which is good because once I edited the video down, it was like a whole 30 minutes, and I'm just gonna do part 1, recorded part 2, and I feel like once I had did part 2, I think I really got my flow down, and it was more enjoyable. Be sure to like follow me, like, subscribe, have a conversation, you know, in the comments down below. And I hope you like the video, and I want to make more videos like this and recording stuff and reading and doing voices. If you like those, I tried really hard. I really enjoyed it, and I hope y'all enjoyed it, and more is to come.